This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Welcome to the 1012 Big Show, where we recap the weekend that was of Big 12 action with a variety of guests. This week, that includes Joe Goodman, Chase Kitty, and Tyrel Kirkham of the Big 12 office. The 1012 podcast is, of course, the flagship show of the 1012 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com. We're also partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip. Thank you for joining us on this Monday. Wherever you are listening, please do us a favor. Leave us 5 stars and a review. Would love to read some reviews. Primarily try and check everything. Always check Apple. That's where most reviews are left. If you're a Spotify listener, leave a comment as well. If you're watching or listening on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe. We would appreciate anything and everything you can do for the show. It really does help us out. Don't forget, tell a friend about the 1012. Tell them we're the reason you started watching games on TNT, because you've come to realize how beneficial that is for the Big 12 and its fans. So let's kick this thing off by going in the rotation as we do every week. He is the pickle to Matt Workman's peanut butter on the Bear Den podcast, our Baylor show here in the network. Very excited to have Joe Goodman back in the rotation. Joe, welcome back, sir.
Pickles and peanut butter. Is that a Phillip Slavin special?
Absolutely not. I literally Googled what's the funniest pairing you can do or real pairing you can do with peanut butter. And it was like pickles and peanut butter. I said, there we go. I found it.
Excellent.
That's the one.
Jim and I out there. I mean, now, you know Baylor Etta, right? You know, from her back in the old Twitter days. She was a firebrand on the in the Baylor sphere. She is a pickle lover. Like she is anything pickle flavored. Pickled beer. Like when Sonic recently came out with like their pickle stuff, she was stoked.
First off,
so now I have to bring up
pickles
and peanut butter to her.
Are phenomenal. Their pickle burger is, which is always funny as an avid Bluey watcher. There's the bathtub episode where they have the pickle burgers, and it always sounded good. And Sonic introduced one, and it is incredible. If you like pickles, and I do as well, it's a phenomenal burger. It's just pickles. It's so good, so good.
Yeah, my wife's a big pickle person too. So now after we finish recording this, I'm going to ask her if she's ever done pickles and peanut butter, and she might just do it now.
I have not, and I'm not sure I will. Adam Eaton of Sons of UCF was going to join us tonight. Alas, y'all, prayers up for him. Family, I'm pretty sure they've got a stomach bug, and that is not, having done that with small children before, not great. Not a fun experience. Not a fun night for him. So hopefully it's
no, definitely not.
It's quick and as brief as possible. All right, let's kick this show off. Listen, folks, we knew it was going to come. Sometimes it happens in a wave, sometimes in a small trickle throughout the season. But to paraphrase Thanos himself, dread it, run from it. Chaos still arrives. And it did for the Big 12 this weekend. BYU wins the Holy War for a second year in a row. This time as a dog at home. Remember, don't ever bet against BYU after dark. They now remain undefeated on the season and Big 12 play, which is I still don't know how this team is undefeated, but they are, and so props to them. And hand Utah a second conference loss in what might have been the final blow to their conference title hopes. We will see. There's still plenty of football left to be played. Meanwhile, Texas Tech missed Behren Morton out in the desert, not the desert of West Texas, the desert of Arizona, as they fall to Arizona State to pick up their first loss of the season. The Sun Devils got a huge win. Could see them become the first team to return to Arlington for a second straight year since OU did it 4 straight times from 2017 to 2020. It's been a minute, folks. It's been a minute since we've had a repeat champion. I mean, Joe, look, not a lot of surprises outside of, I would say, those two this weekend. But we sit here with a very interesting looking Big 12. We'll hit on these games and some more coming up. But I mean, it feels like the Big 12 is right about where we all expected it to be at this point in the season, which is with a whole lot of like, yeah, that's not what we thought it would look like, which is very Big 12.
Yeah, it's absolutely. We had no idea what we were talking about at the beginning of the year, which we all knew we didn't know. So it was whatever you think is going to happen, just bet the other way. Yeah, I will say I'm not surprised about one of these chaos games. I'm not in the least bit surprised about Arizona State knocking off Texas Tech.
Okay, so let's go there. Arizona State, of course, beats Texas Tech. Red Raiders absolutely missed Behren Morton's experience in this game. And I think, coming into the weekend, I felt confident about Texas Tech just because they've answered every challenge that has come their way. And then we find out that Behren Morton is, air quotes, available in case of emergency, which basically meant if Will Hammond got knocked out of the game, Behren Morton could have come into play. But struggling was not enough to bring Behren Morton back into this game early at any point. And that's what happened with Hammond at the start of this game. He struggled early. We've seen him coming against Utah. He was phenomenal in that game when he came in. But listen, it's one thing to ride in on a white horse in the midst of a quarterback injury in the middle of a game and look good. It's a whole other thing to have to be the starter from the get-go. Those are not the same thing. We've all seen many a time where, other quarterback has to come in and, well, he does pretty well because you weren't game planning on him. And so here you are. Look, was there some questionable offensive play calling given Hammond's lack of experience? Yes, I think so. But that inexperience to me is ultimately what doomed the Red Raiders in this game. He got going late, but it was too little too late because, yes, Texas Tech actually took the lead in this game late, but Arizona State was able to march down the field in under a minute and a half and get the game winning touchdown in this one. When does Morton come back? How long is Skylar Will Howard out? Those are big questions for Texas Tech moving forward. Look, Texas Tech, to me, is still the best team in the Big 12. You lost a game by 4 with your starting quarterback out on the road against a really good Arizona State team who had their starting quarterback back. Like, this is not one of those games you look at and go, oh, no, the sky is falling for Texas Tech. Unless, of course, Behren Morton doesn't come back for a while. Then we have some questions. Not next week against Oklahoma State. Not the week after at Kansas State. But certainly 3 weeks from now when they have BYU in Lubbock for what should be another fantastic clash of two teams. Now, again, props to Arizona State for winning this game. They did. Shout out to the fans who rushed the field. We love it when fans rush fields. They deserve this win. They got this win. They were able to find a way. Arizona State this season, outside of the Mississippi State game, and then a game without their starting quarterback, just seems to find ways to win. And so props to them for doing it again against Texas Tech.
That's what you have to be in the Big 12. You have to be the team that just finds a way to win every year. Like that was BYU last year. That was TCU in the year they made their national title run. And it's BYU this year. It's Arizona State this year. It's just, it kind of comes down to who's really, really well coached. I have all the respect in the world for Kenny Dillingham. I have all the respect in the world for Kalani Sitake. I have all the respect in the world for Joey McGuire too. I think those 3 guys are amazing coaches. And when I said I wasn't surprised that Arizona State beat them or that I expected that to happen or anything, it's not a knock on Texas Tech. It's just,
no,
I don't think Texas Tech is going to run the table. There's probably 2 losses in their schedule. There's one, a logical loss, which I think is this one on the road against a really, really good football team. And you're going to have a stupid loss somewhere in there. Maybe it's 2 logical losses. Like you mentioned, they have BYU on their schedule. Those are probably the 2 hardest games that they've got, is Arizona State and BYU. You could make an argument about the Utah game that they won, but I think they probably drop another one and go 10-2, and they still make it to Arlington. I think they're going to make it to Arlington with 1 or 2 losses. And if you're not picking Texas Tech to make it, I think you're a crazy person. This loss isn't going to derail their season. Baron Morton will be back. His X-rays were negative. And as you like, he was available for this game, right? Like, he's probably going to be out for another week or two, if I had to guess. But he was still questionable coming into this game. There was probably gamesmanship there, just trying to make Arizona State have to prepare for him. On the other side of that, though, I really don't think he's not the trigger of what makes that team go. Like, if TCU were to lose Hoover or Baylor were to lose Sawyer Robertson, that would be a complete derailment of both of those teams' seasons. No matter what trajectory that they're on, you're going to knock it down multiple pegs because those two guys are the drivers behind the identity of those teams. Baron Morton's a great leader. He is the best quarterback on that roster. He makes them better. But the identity of that team, and this is, I think, a huge plus for having a guy like Joey McGuire, their identity is spread across multiple parts of their team, especially on the defensive side of the football. So I think Texas Tech's going to be okay. I'm not surprised they lost this game, but I also don't think, hey, this sky is falling.
I think the Skylar Gill-Howard loss is a bigger one.
Yeah,
honestly.
For sure. I agree.
Think that's a bigger one for Texas Tech. And with him out for the year, his importance on the defensive line is huge. And I think you saw that in this game, especially late, right? I do think if Baron Morton, with the way that game was played, where it took until the fourth quarter to get things rolling, I don't think Baron Morton takes that long if he struggles like that to start with. I don't think, with how long he's been at Texas Tech and how many games he's played, I don't think, based off what we've seen from him this year, that the offense takes as long as it did to get rolling.
It was my wife's birthday yesterday, and she's a Texas Tech grad. We were out to like a brewery that had a big playground and stuff here in Houston with, I think, 3 or 4 other Texas Tech folks and their fans. And so we were all watching the games and stuff on our phone. I was the only quote unquote anti-Texas Tech person that was there, and I was having a blast. But no, like, at the end of that game, A, I couldn't believe they were in it. And B, I was sitting there thinking, like, oh man, they might actually pull this thing out. And like, if they win this, then they're going to run the table. That would be okay, you hit your speed bump and then you just kept going. It didn't slow you down whatsoever. You're going to have all the confidence in the world. But no, Arizona State is still that good, and they're not perfect, as we've seen this year. They've lost 2 games, but Arizona State, I think, can beat anybody, or at least can play with anybody. So they're dangerous. Watch out for them.
All right, the other big one, of course, BYU winning the Holy War for the second straight year. They're now 2-0 in the Holy War in the Big 12. I don't know what it's going to take for me, and I am saying this admitting that I don't know what it's going to take for me to fully buy this BYU team, because I still just don't understand at this point how they're 7-0. Because look, the schedule to start off with: Portland State, Stanford, East Carolina, Colorado, West Virginia. I was like, okay. But they just, like, you had to come back against Colorado. Like, you need a double overtime and a comeback against Arizona. You have a close win against Utah. Like, this is, again, win your close ones, win your clunkers, and they continue to do that. But I still can't look at this BYU team and say, like, they're undefeated, they're the best team in the Big 12. I don't believe that. There's, like, having watched this team, like, I don't believe they're the best team in the Big 12. I don't know how they're still 7-0. The schedule the rest of the way is still tough, but the fact that they've survived these first 2 is incredible. And yeah, listen, if they can get those home games after dark, like, they're going to get wins there. But the next few weeks, your 3 of your next 4 are at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, and at Cincinnati. Like, props to BYU for winning this game. I think it really sucks for Utah on the fact that, I do think the Big 12 title dreams are a bit out of reach now, just because you lost to Texas Tech and you lost to BYU. Like, you have 2 tiebreakers at this point that you lose, you really don't want to have to lose. I don't know how, without a whole ton of help, they have any shot of getting back into this race, given who their losses are too. They could still have a good season. Whittingham can still ride off into the sunset feeling like he did a pretty good job in this last year, but like Utah's dreams of a Big 12 title are dead again. And BYU's, like, I feel like it's going to end like last year. Like, you're going to get down to the wire and has a tiebreaker that doesn't work your way, but another good season, and hopefully they can keep Kalani Sitake. But like, I just don't buy this BYU team. They're a good team. I will give them full credit. They're better than I thought they were. This is a good team. But I cannot push all my chips in on BYU. I just can't do it.
They're like a golfer that doesn't hit great drives. They're not a great putter, but they can walk out there and they never miss with their irons. That's what BYU is.
Perfect.
Again, I'm gonna bring up the TCU team that lost to Michigan in the national championship, or beat Michigan, lost to whoever they lost to. I don't even remember. Who cares? Georgia. That's who they lost to. Yeah. But anyway, chicken wings on the sideline. That's all I remember from that game. But TCU, that TCU team just constantly just made sure that they were in every game, and then they closed them out. BYU is very similar to that in that they just don't beat themselves. They're +6 in turnover margin, so they average about +1 turnover per game. They don't screw around. Their quarterback doesn't make a whole bunch of mistakes. He's also not going to go out there and sling it around and beat you, but they're generally older than everybody that they play. They're generally more mature than anybody that they're going to go play. And these are, it's kind of like it's a business out there for them. And I think, again, they're very, very well coached. They don't beat themselves. So they say, we're going to invite you to come beat us. And if you can't beat us, then we're going to win the football game. You mentioned their schedule, though. I mean, they've got Iowa State on the road, Texas Tech on the road, TCU at home, and Cincinnati on the road over their next 4. That is an absolute gauntlet. I don't think that they're going to be able to pull off making it to Arlington. I think they get their first loss next week at Iowa State. I think Iowa State starts to get the ship right a little bit, but that might be the beginning of the downfall. But again, they're going to have a great year, and they're probably a 9-10 win team after bowl season is said and done. So kudos to BYU. I didn't think they were going to be this good, but they just go out there and they play good football. That's it.
Yeah. Listen, there's a betting stat that we'll talk about on Thursday's Picks Pod that will explain why Iowa State's going to win on Saturday. And it's not about BYU. This is not an anti-BYU thing. There's a statistic based off of the betting line that says, I think Iowa State wins on Saturday. If the line stays,
I'm with you on it. Mine is just pure vibes. Yours is based off of analytics, I guess.
Let's say analytics. Yeah, analytics. Sure. Cincinnati stomps Oklahoma State in Stillwater on homecoming day, 49-17, despite Cowboy fans debuting a banana section to go with the shirtless section of the stadium. I know that OSU football as a program is not good right now. But it's embarrassing that Oklahoma State fans turn out and in the way that they did for a team that hasn't beaten an FBS opponent since Tulsa in week 3 of last season. And yet they've got banana conga lions and shirtless dudes and the women's basketball head coach in the shirtless section wearing a shirt that says shirtless, which is phenomenal. And then you compare that to Houston, who is now 6-1 and bowl eligible and has, from all I could see watching that game, an almost empty stadium. And I got 2 responses on Twitter when bringing that up of either A, they don't have any fans, or B, it was hot. It was so hot. So we weren't out watching the game. You're in a close game that required a game-winning field goal, and you're too hot to stand out in the stadium and watch the football game. No, listen, I want to like Houston. I like the team. I love that they're 6-1. I love what Willie Fritz is doing there. Game-winning field goal is awesome, but fans, if there are any of you, maybe it's just the guys who do the Scott and Holman podcast, and I don't know who's listening to that show that's doing the numbers that it does because I don't know who the Houston fans are. Maybe they're all just basketball fans now, but like, y'all, it's too hot. It's October.
Dude,
get your butt out there.
Well, first off, I will caveat that the October thing is kind of pointless. I do live here, and it's still 90 degrees every single day. But I will say it's not nearly as humid as it was even a month ago. It's still 90. It's not 100. It's man, it's hot in Waco too, and I'm not going to sit here and act like Baylor has the greatest attendance or whatever. We don't have the same issues, but
you are 6-1.
Yeah,
you're like, well, we might fire our head coach.
There's a lot of people that aren't excited about our coach, whereas Willie Fritsch, I think, deserves a little bit more credit. Here's the other big part of it. Waco doesn't, like, the greater Houston area, where you're talking about like Galveston, the Woodlands, Houston, that whole area where you're everything about within an hour of the city center. You're talking about 7.5 million people. You're talking about a school whose population is 50,000. The attendance for that game, the official attendance that was reported, which means this isn't butts and seats, this is probably how many tickets they sold, is 28,000. That's just, it's unacceptable. I don't understand it either, because like, I can tell you right now, you go around town and you can see U of H stickers, U of H shirts, U of H hats, everything everywhere. People are excited about the athletic program because of the basketball team and because the football team is at least respectable. I don't honestly know what it's going to take to get people to show up there. But no, it's really bad. Like, you look at the main highlight of this game, if you're on the ESPN page, for the game-winning field goal for them to beat Arizona to get bowl eligible, right, and be 6-1. It's a half full in the crowd that's directly behind the end zone and the still image of the highlight. So they've got to do something about it. I will say it sucks going to that stadium. I'm not gonna lie, it really does.
I don't care. I don't like. Listen,
the logistics suck, but every college stadium logistics sucks. I'm talking myself out of all my own excuses.
There were not 28,000 people in that stadium in that game. There were not. I had that game on a lot. There were not 28,000 people in that stadium for the game. No, we're moving on, because that's enough of this. Okay, so that leads us to our conversation about the contenders, because now we have discussed pretty much most of them at this point. BYU and Cincinnati, of course, remain unbeaten in Big 12 play. What a Big 12 title game that would be. Hope you love Skyline Chili and chocolate milk. Arizona State, Texas Tech, and Houston each have one conference loss, and there are 6 teams at 2-2 in conference play. At this point, we can't do the 2-2 in conference play teams. I'm sorry, guys. We've got 5 teams we're going to focus on here. Updated Big 12 title odds from PFSN: college, BYU at 32.1%, Cincinnati at 22.5%, Texas Tech at 19.3%, Arizona State at 16.3%, and Houston at 4.1%. I get it with Houston. Like, they control their destiny. Yes, they do. They have a tie-breaking loss to Texas Tech, but they still control their destiny, win and out. They're probably going to be in Arlington. Do I think they're going to do it? No. Again, I get BYU with the best odds being undefeated, but the schedule the rest of the way is gnarly. Texas Tech's got one game against BYU. Outside of that, show me the game. I get it. We can play the, like, Texas Tech always loses a game they shouldn't. Maybe they will.
Yeah, this also isn't that Texas Tech team.
Yeah, that's the thing of, like, this is not, like, we can't play that game with this team. They might lose one. It's just not one of those things where it's like in years past where it's an automatic. I don't think it's an automatic. Arizona State and Cincinnati are very, very interesting. Like, they are. Like, and listen, I don't do the schedule, but Cincinnati, they've got to go to Utah. They've got BYU. Like, they don't have the easiest schedule either. Arizona State's rest of the trek is, I know, it's
Arizona State has by far the easiest road out of all these teams.
I think, listen, I don't think we're going to get a rematch, but if we're going to get a rematch in a Big 12 title game, a healthy Arizona State versus a healthy Texas Tech at a neutral field, albeit it'll be in Texas, so it's not, you don't be that neutral. But I feel like enough Arizona State fans, it'll be a pretty neutral game. I would be very intrigued to see this game played again in Arlington between 2 healthy teams.
100%. And if you ask me right now, you have to put money down and tell me, gamble on this, I'm gonna say it's Arizona State and Texas Tech, because I still think Texas Tech is the most talented and best team in the conference. So I think they're gonna do fine to close out the year. And then you look at Arizona State, it's Houston, Iowa State, West Virginia, Colorado, Arizona. Now, Houston and Iowa State aren't pushovers, but West Virginia, they're going to blow them out of the water. Colorado should be a team that they can beat, and then they're better than Arizona. So they have the easiest path. So I think they're going to repeat their appearance in Arlington, and I do think they'll face off against Texas Tech. That's what I have to guess, because Cincinnati's got a little bit of a tougher schedule. I still don't fully believe in Cincinnati. I probably should. Sorry, guys. And then we've talked about BYU already, how we think, they're probably hitting that little wall of the next handful of games that they've got coming up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Okay, Joe.
Are you a forward thinker? Then you need an HR and finance platform that thinks like you do. Workday is the AI platform that helps propel your organization, your workforce, and your industry into the future. Workday, moving business forever forward.
UCF picks up their first conference win of the season in a dominant fashion over West Virginia. I'm going to read you UCF's remaining schedule, and I want you to tell me if they reach bowl eligibility. Okay?
Woo.
Right? Okay. They're 4-3 right now, so they only need 2 more wins to get to 6. At Baylor, Houston, at Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, at BYU. Oh, that's tough. Right? Like, give them they play Oklahoma State at home in Orlando. So there's win number 5. Can they beat Baylor on the road, Houston at home, or Texas Tech or BYU on the road? So basically, can they beat one of Baylor on the road or Houston at home to get to a 6th win?
Baylor's homecoming, so that stadium actually will be full. Like, I know a lot of out-of-towners that bought tickets to that game months ago and plane tickets to that game months ago because it's homecoming. Oldest homecoming. We invented the thing. Go look it up. You're welcome. So that's going to be a tough game. I feel like Houston's got a stupid one that they could drop. So you've got this coin flip of Baylor, Houston, and then we're going to assume an Oklahoma State win. You know what? Yeah. Let's go Knights. You guys, they're going to a bowl. I'm going to give it to them.
That is insane to me to think about that, but it's a real possibility. Of course, TCU gets the rivalry win over Baylor. Weird weather delayed game twice, in fact. Baylor had a chance through a pick in the closing seconds to seal the win for the Horned Frogs. Sorry, Joe. I mean, listen, it's always a weird situation when you have a fan base who's really kind of tired of a coach and you're like, I mean, we don't want to lose, but maybe we don't want to keep him around. But if he wins too many games, he's back for another year. How are Baylor fans feeling right now at 4-3?
I am a sunshine and rainbows kind of guy. And I am even in the darkest thoughts of college football fans of where we may be headed with realignment and who gets left out in the cold and things like that, I've always been the person of, I'm a Baylor fan. I'm going to root for Baylor no matter what. So if they're a D2 school somewhere in 10 years, guess what? I'm going to find a way to stream their game and I'm going to watch it. And every week I convince myself that we're the best team in the world all over again, no matter what happened the week before. That said, I had to mute some group chats this weekend because it's gotten to the point now where even I know people will sit there and be like, oh, I think Baylor loses this game 35-28. And then when Baylor's up 7-0 and TCU ties it to tie the game at 7, the sky is falling. And I'm like, you predicted that TCU would win this game against us. You predicted that they would score 35 points. And now you're getting upset because they scored their first 7 points. How are you surviving? Like, why are you even choosing to watch this? So there's just a general bad vibe around everything right now. And you're 100% correct. This is something Matt and I have been texting about, is I don't think that there's people that want to see us lose that root for us. But there's negativity. I've always said, like, negativity is kind of like a disease and it spreads. So there's just a negative vibe around this. And there's probably a new voice that will be needed at some point that has a little bit more energy behind it, because I think the current voice that's in there, I think the calming effect that it has allows us to make some of the comebacks that we've done over the last couple of years, but it's not necessarily the correct culture fit for the vibe of the fan base. Similar to what we saw at Texas Tech a couple of years ago when they wanted to get rid of Matt Wells, and there was people in the media that were like, oh, you're crazy. You know, the guy's actually winning some games here and there. He's really not all that bad. They were like, we don't want him. And so, and then they end up with Joey McGuire, and he's the perfect fit for Texas Tech. Like, Joey McGuire is 100% He was built in a lab to be Texas Tech's head coach. And I think Baylor fans kind of see that, and they want something similar to that. They want a Kenny Dillingham. They want a guy that gets up and gets upset about certain things. So yeah, the vibe is bad. And even if we had won this game, I don't know if the vibe would be that much better. So we'll see what the rest of the season looks like, what the off season looks like. But as I said, come tomorrow, I will be focused on what we have coming next, and be very, very excited to watch it no matter what. And I think we have Cincinnati on the road next. So
correct. Yeah.
Listen, and we're going to win it, Phil. We're going to win it. We're going to knock them out of Big 12 contention.
It's always weird when a school lets a coach go on a season where they've made a bowl game, but look, there's no reason for me to believe the Baylor doesn't make a bowl game at 4-3 right now with what they have remaining, and yet I just don't know how Dave Aranda comes back for another season unless the buyout's closer to the $20 million as opposed to the $12 million, because we don't really know what it is. It's just somewhere in that range.
Man, I don't even know if that matters in the modern college football game after what we've seen. Like you've seen, James Franklin's buyout was ungodly. Billy Napier it wasn't jump change what he had for his buyout. I think we're getting to the point now where, because NIL is such a massive thing, you're going to have donors that are willing to pay that money because they paid money for players and they want to see the money that they want to see their ROI on their NIL deals. And number two, if you're not diving into the coach carousel now and dealing with agents, then you're already going to be behind the 8 ball. And I think that's one of the shifts that we're seeing in this new era of college football.
We are already at $113 million in buyouts, and Auburn's not open yet. Florida State's not open yet. Wisconsin's not open. There's a lot more money to be paid this offseason. This isn't silly money. This is like Daffy Duck at his most cartoonish money levels we're talking about.
This is Scrooge McDuck.
Diving into a giant money bin of money. All right, Joe, you have been fantastic as always, man. Do me a favor, plug the show.
Yep, check us out. We are The Bear Den. You can find us at thebeardenpod.com or anywhere where your podcasts are found. We don't just talk about Baylor sports. We also dive into the foray of movies, TV, lots of Star Wars talk. We are both quite nerdy, but we generally do a pretty good job of being fair to everybody else. Even though if you are playing us on a given week, we will likely pick that Baylor will beat you. But come check us out.
The Big 12 is going international again next year. 2 Big 12 football games we get played overseas, 1 conference game and 1 non-conference game. It seems like the Big 12 has found their new audience that they want to shift to. So very excited to have the Chief Business Officer for the Big 12 Conference, Tyrel Kirkham, joining us today. Tyrel, welcome to 1012.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am thrilled about this. I love that we had a Big 12 game in Ireland. Getting Big 12 on week 0 is fun because it gives us a little bit of extra early taste of our favorite conference. Now we're going to get TCU North Carolina back in Ireland next year, and the first Union Jack game, a game in London, conference game, Kansas and Arizona State. Listen, we'll get to the grand scheme of it all, but let's just start with that game. It was such a big announcement to come out. Rumors have been coming out for a few days, and it was made official a few weeks ago. So how did this game come together, and what was the Big 12's thought process behind making sure that they were the conference to kick this what we hope is an annual tradition now off?
Yeah. So again, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Secondly, I think from a conference perspective and vision of Brett Yormark, since he took the helm, he always wanted to find ways to differentiate ourselves, to bring in new audiences into the fold. And I think he made it abundantly clear from the onset that international growth and awareness of the Big 12 conference was important. Certainly that does not mean that we're alienating the regionality and the national awareness of collegiate athletics. That's what makes it special. But as we think about the day and age that we're in, it's important that we realize some of the opportunities in front of us and, international growth, what that means for the student athlete body. Just think about recruitment and all the student athletes that are part of our ecosystem that come from international marketplaces, markets, equally as much as student athlete experience, what that does for visibility of our brand elsewhere. all things that were exciting reasons to get behind the international push. In this instance, I think once we set the foundation for the opportunity and getting our institutions to think about what global growth represented, you have hand raisers that want to lean in, that find unique opportunities, whether it's their alumni base or new opportunities for awareness for their respective brands, in addition to the Big 12 conference. I think you saw that with this particular matchup, and one that we're really excited to lean into.
Yeah, how did we get to Arizona State and Kansas being the game we sent here? I think it's fun and exciting. It's an interesting matchup, but how did these two teams become the ones who said, "Yeah, we want to do this. Send us overseas"?
Yeah, I mean, taking a step back, I had the pleasure of attending the game in Ireland this year and seeing K-State and Iowa State play on what was an all eyes on the Big 12 in week 0. We've got some basketball matchups with women's basketball. Baylor's going to play in Paris. So there's been a lot of interest on behalf of our institutions. When we think about foreign tours, some of our institutions have satellite campuses in other markets. And I think with this particular matchup, and specifically the London market, and having heard about, other markets based on whether it's NFL success and or, new opportunities within the collegiate landscape to lean in, you had the two institutions lean in. I can tell you right now, there's others who have expressed interest, and in due time we'll get there and better understand what the future holds. But we're just stoked to know that there is interest on behalf of our membership for taking their brands globally. And again, I think it needs to be done tastefully, find the right opportunity. Obviously, with respect to what we saw in Ireland, it was such a spectacle, and being on the ground and getting a chance to immerse myself in the culture, not only of those on the local front that were interested in the game, but the abundance of people who made the trip across the pond to be a part of this moment. I think you'll see that, in the same light and magnitude when we get to London next year.
Listen, the week 0 game in Ireland has just become a part of college football. Like we all look forward to it. It's exciting. It's nice to have this, what feels like a big game, partially because it often is, and oftentimes also because it's week 0 and it's our first matchup between two teams that everybody knows, right? We get some other week 0 games. Shout out to Kansas for playing one this year. But how much did that game, do you feel like it influenced some of the other Big 12's opinions on being more willing to play games overseas in London and Ireland after they saw what the level of success that the Big 12 had and Iowa State and Kansas State had in that game?
It always helps. Proof of concept is key. And, we have a strong AD room, one that speaks to collaboration and opportunities. So on the heels of that, all the positive feedback, the opportunity, we actually had the TCU squad on the ground with us in Ireland, sort of doing a year in advance scouting. K-State and Iowa State had done that a year prior with the matchup from the year before. So there was already a pretty significant amount of interest, specifically around Ireland. But I do think it served as a proving point to open everyone's imagination to what it could mean if we were to venture off into another market. And I think the success of the Ireland game, coupled with the ongoing success and the international growth of the game of football within the NFL and all the efforts that they're putting in and taking advantage of markets, not just in Europe, but South America and other places, I think it really furthered to punctuate the desire and opportunity in front of us to be the first to go to London and be a part of the Union Jack Classic. And, London's a phenomenal market. Again, I've been around the block a little bit, so I've worked in the NFL. When I was with the Rams, I had the opportunity to play a game in London against the Broncos. When I was with the Nets, we went over to London, China. So I've seen the power of what it could do for your brand. Obviously, football isn't as global as basketball or soccer ultimately is, but what the NFL is doing, and I think in working in tandem in some of those markets where they've already laid good foundation, it affords us the opportunity to really draft behind all the wonderful momentum that's happening with the game of football, American football globally.
Yeah, look, there is a fantastic college football podcast with some guys in England who they're in Ireland and have already been working with the Union Jack Classic, and having had them on the show before, like they've talked about this growing college football fan base overseas, partially because you have more Americans who have moved overseas and brought that fandom with them. You have more Europeans who have come to the U.S. and have gone to college at U.S. colleges, and so they've become familiar with college football, and then they've taken that back. Obviously, we know about with Australia, with all the kickers that seem to come through college football nowadays. It is a sport that is becoming more global, and there's always going to be limitations as there's not as much college football played over there, but it does feel like there is more and more of a growing fan base. I mean, you're going to have loyalties over there based off of what relationships you have, because obviously they didn't grow up fans of Oklahoma State or an Alabama or a Virginia Tech or a TCU. How do you strategize to say, like, we want to stake a claim here? We want the Big 12 to be a conference and a collection of teams that college football fans overseas like and cheer for and root for and become fans of, to the point where they're investing in this conference. They're watching games on networks where games are broadcast over there on DAZN, or, hey, they're asking for more Big 12 football games there. How do you, as a conference, invest in that and find those people and develop those fans?
Yeah, it starts. It's grassroots, right? For us, we want to be where the people are. And I'll go back to a time in Ireland a few months ago where I took the train where I was staying every day, so I just got a chance to listen and learn. I was on the subway. I was eavesdropping on all the conversations, and American sports as a whole and how people track them was just so fascinating to me to unlock some of their truths. And I remember going over when I was with the Rams and just seeing the vast array of jerseys. And we always see it on TV and we laugh. It's like, well, the Jags are playing here, the Rams are playing here. Oddly enough, they're playing this weekend. But there's 75 other jerseys or teams. Every team is properly represented on game day. And the same was true when I got to Ireland, right? You saw some K-State and Iowa State jerseys, obviously from the fans that had traveled over, but you saw a wide swath of NFL jerseys that were in the mix, some other college teams that were in the mix, as well as sort of the Big 12 institutions that were being represented. And all of that is the beginning, the seedlings of opportunity to grow the game over time. And this is a crawl, not sprint effort. And for us, each of these instances is why we say we're a different league. We understand the enormity associated with trying to get these things off the ground, but let's start grassroots. Commissioner Yormark is on the ground there today in Wembley, shaking hands and sort of ingratiating ourselves in that marketplace. We've started to engage in some of the influencers that are movers and shakers in that market that can serve as a mouthpiece on behalf of the conference when we're not there, or the lead up to next September. And I think that methodical approach, drafting off of the NFL and their big games that are happening there, are there other moments on the calendar? Wembley is iconic within itself, right? Like, what else is happening there that we can utilize as a springboard to bring visibility to our game? And more importantly, I think the growth of American football. Like, we don't want to, undervalue what it means for us to grow this game that we've all come to love and know. And to your point earlier about the amount of Europeans that come over and experience the game of football, they go back home and say, like, what I have with soccer or what I have with football, I see where the passion resides. And I think one step further of what college athletics means and the passion and pageantry and fandom associated with college athletics is something, NFL is a phenomenal property. We all know the power of the Shield, but there's something special that happens on Saturdays that when you see it unlock and that pageantry comes to life and the bands playing in stands and the flags and all the things that are represented within collegiate athletics, it's just this beautiful unlock that we're proud to share with the world and to grow it together and work truly in collaboration.
I definitely think college athletics has more in line with really die-hard European soccer fans than it does with other pro leagues in the U.S., just from the passion and loyalty. And you get some of those smaller teams where that is the town, that's it. That town worships that team, and that's what you get with a lot of college towns. Of, like, it's college town, that team is everything. That's what you do on Saturday. You go to those games, you cheer for, whether it's football or baseball or soccer or whatever it is, you're there at those games cheering for them. And so to find ways in, I'm curious, you talk about it's a crawl, not even a walk, and it's a grassroots effort. what are ways that the Big 12 is looking to make the conference more accessible to fans overseas? Because obviously there are limitations on what games get broadcast over there. Not everything that's available in the U.S. is available in England or Ireland. What are the ways the Big 12 can continue to work to make the conference more easily accessible to those fans over there who would want to learn and watch more Big 12 football?
Yeah, one thing we're doing is working very closely with our broadcast partners for some of the distribution that they do have locally on the ground overseas to ensure that Big 12 games are selected as their feature, whether you talk about the Zone or others that have relationships with the ESPN and Foxes of the world, obviously welcoming WBD to the family. There's new opportunities for fans to consume the Big 12 overseas. I think the other piece is social digital efforts, right? So much of what we're going to do here, we've introduced a XII mark that features the Union Jack mark there just to create greater association and affinity with that brand. As the partnership, obviously we're commercially driven here. We have sponsors and partners part of our portfolio that have global footprint, part of their full global footprint. How do we lean on them and utilize them as extensions into those markets and really start to cultivate meaningful relationships with their customers? And how do we make them Big 12 fans? And that juxtaposition of how we build that affinity has been a fun exercise. And we're continuing to turn over every stone and leverage the entire ecosystem within the Big 12 to allow us to grow. Because at some point, right, there's all the short-term gains that we realize of, how do we create a wonderful student athlete experience, grow fandom, recruit internationally or continued efforts to recruit internationally. But in the future, I think, TV, that's not something we're monetizing off of today, right? And if you could do your part in ensuring that, 2030 comes around, that now maybe you bifurcate your international rights from your domestic rights, and now there's a new revenue stream that you can truly monetize off of. So all things that we're thinking about, and it goes back to we're crawling here, we're going to walk, and then ultimately we'll sprint. But what a tremendous runway that we have to sort of be the first. We love being first movers. I think it's been our point of differentiation since Brett's taken the helm, and this is just one additional notch under our belt that we'll continue to take advantage of.
Gotta push those fantastic highlight game recaps that you guys post on YouTube on a regular basis. Those are fantastic. Love being able to watch those. I think it's a great way to listen. Everyone loves highlights, and so can't watch the whole game. You can at least catch the parts you need to catch from each one.
And one additional point that I'll make, I think as you get to the NFL and all the success they've had, to create that correlation, I look at a Pat Mahomes, who's an international star. Right? It all started here, and utilizing what's happening on Sundays, but where it all began on Saturdays is a lovely push and pull that we'll leverage to further cement and create the connective tissue that speaks to, the Pat Mahomes, the Brock Purdy's, or whomever else we're referring to based on the success they had while attending a Big 12 institution.
Yeah, I think that's great. He still has a great relationship with Texas Tech, which certainly doesn't hurt. And obviously Texas Tech having the success that they're having right now, him having the success that he has in NFL, those are both really good things for the Big 12. And listen, you guys, I think the conference as a whole has really leaned into doing a great job of promoting the conference and the best things about it, and looking for all the different options that present itself from that way to help continue to just grow this conference. I love that there's a game in England. I understand for fans who don't love this stuff, but from the standpoint of a conference as a whole, like, this is what we got to do. This is what has to be done. And I think it's brilliant. Obviously you can't give away any trade secrets, but I would assume, I'm just going to go ahead and make a leap here. Forgive me. That the 2026 will not be the last we see of the Big 12 playing college football overseas in England and Ireland moving forward.
Listen, we said we're open for business. We meant it. We're going to be judicious in our approach. I do think, the opportunity to test drive 26 and see how it goes, obviously building off the success of a Big 12 matchup in Ireland this year, in Dublin specifically, bode well for the success and what it meant for the traveling parties equally as much at what it meant for the local fans. And we're opportunistic. We appreciate the acknowledgement, and you see the efforts we're making. Just back to the point around regionality, and if it was the same team participating every year, we'd be in trouble. But I think what we want to do is build something that you can do it on rotation, no different than what I've come to enjoy. Right, the Friday night games that happen this year. Right, not everybody's playing on Friday nights weekly. But to get a little taste of it, to have your own free air where it's the only game in town that people are watching, that's good for the Big 12 brand. And I think to be able to do the same type of have the same type of efforts on a global stage and provide that visibility is equally part of the tactic that we'll look to exploit and again, see where we net out. At the end of the day, it's driven by our institutions and their desire to be a part of it. I can tell you, I spoke to a lot of K-State and Iowa State fans. They were thrilled with the experience. So the fan support is also a validator of those efforts, and excited to see where we net out in the future.
Yeah, listen, Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU, Kansas, and Arizona State, I think it's a great collection of Big 12 teams to have sent overseas between last year and this year. And it gives a little different taste from everyone. And so again, this is a conference as a whole, and I think it's a conference that offers a lot for everyone. It's kind of like a buffet. If everyone's gonna find something they like in the Big 12, and so giving them a little bit of taste of this and a little bit of taste of that is fantastic. Tyrel, I really, really appreciate your time. This is absolutely great to have you on. Thank you so much, and look, I can't wait. Well,
listen, we appreciate the coverage, the support, and as much as it is a buffet, I think on a global stage, we'll call it a smorgasbord. But certainly thankful and excited to see it all manifest in the coming months and year with respect to TCU kicking things off in week 0 and then following that up in week 3 with this Kansas-Arizona State matchup.
All right, next stop, get the Coca-Cola Classic back in Japan. That's
Yeah, the K-State, Gene Taylor referenced that during his presser back in Dublin. So we might have to dust that off. We'll see.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
All right, we move on to our third segment of the show. Thank you again. Thank you again to Tyrel Kirkham for coming on from the Big 12 office to talk about Big 12's international plans moving forward. But joining me now, as he does every week here, is my good friend Chase A. Kiddy. Chase, welcome back, bud.
Hello, good evening. A little bummed I couldn't talk Andor there with Joe at the end of the last segment, but maybe another day.
Listen, I'll let them know you want to hop on and talk Andor. I'm sure they'd be happy to have you, and then maybe a little betting talk as well. We'll see what happens. Chase, let's start this as we do each week. What outcome this weekend had the biggest impact on your views of that team or the Big 12 as a whole?
Well, West Virginia's not eligible because they're dog shit, and they're really bad, and I'm tired of watching them lose by a million. Although I will say we had some West Virginia relatives in town this weekend, so the second straight episode I have food props. We're doing this episode with pepperoni rolls, fresh made from the motherland. So lot of worse outcomes on a Sunday night. I think it's Arizona State. I think it has to be. I've talked a little bit in the last week about how I view the evolving Big 12 title picture sort of at the halfway mark, and you have these two groups, these sort of two half groups at the top of the conference, and it was Texas Tech, and then it's the other teams that can challenge for that second spot in the title game. And I think Arizona State, because of the Sam Leavitt injury, because just the Salt Lake trip was so bad from minute 1 of that game, and it just went so far off the rails. it was easy to feel like they'd lost a little positioning. And then Texas Tech comes to Tempe, and it's like, oh, let's flip the table over and start again. Because you're still not. I want to save some Texas Tech chatter for the end. I want to focus on Arizona State here, but it's hard to ignore how the standings are now flipped with Texas Tech suffering a loss, multiple teams still undefeated in the conference, and Texas Tech doesn't have head-to-head games left against. They don't have it against Arizona State. They just played it and lost. They don't have it against these other teams that are still at the top of the standings in some cases. So it's now a really interesting dynamic, and I'll save the second half of that thought for a few minutes from now. But you have to shove Arizona State back into that picture. And I loved watching game days. You know, sometimes I don't love the commentary you get from game day on Saturday morning as it pertains to the Big 12. I really liked almost a throwaway comment that Reese Davis had where they're picking the Tech Arizona State game, and it's across the board for Texas Tech, understandably. And Reese Davis just kind of wryly looks at the camera and, oh, poor Arizona State, poor conference champion Arizona State. Nobody believes in them. And then there you go. Wild ending. Arizona State gets the win. They're back in it. Texas Tech, very interesting positioning now. And we got a ball game, man. It's going to be a really fun finish, as it often is for the Big 12.
Yeah, look, I've spent all of the offseason and at this point saying I don't think we'll get a rematch just because of the way the Big 12 is set up. And I might be wrong, because Texas Tech to me is still the best team in the Big 12. Arizona State is sitting in a really great spot to be able to get back to Arlington. And look, like I said with Joe, having a rematch of these two teams with both of them healthy, I would watch that. I would watch that game again when both teams have a healthy quarterback, because that does matter in the outcome of that game. Okay, so I assume then that Arizona State is the team that you have stock up on. Who is your stock down on this week? I'll let you finish your bite.
Yeah, why would you take a bite in the middle of a podcast, rookie? What are you doing? It's Arizona, and it could be a lot of teams this week. I think this was the week you really saw the middle start to form, just the messy middle conglomeration of a bunch of 500 in conference play teams. And so I was kind of piecing through all those teams individually, trying to pull out one to highlight as maybe moderately disappointed in. And I realized with the loss to Houston, Arizona is now 1-3 in conference play. Okay, so they're not your squad, and they're not my squad.
Nope.
But they're not much better, you know? And I think talent-wise, I think product on the field they are. I think that passing defense remains pretty good. The quarterback play, the key offensive pieces remains pretty good. But at a certain point, you're 1-3 in conference play, and look at that schedule. If you told me they're going to finish 2-7, I would believe you. And that would kind of put them down where they were initially pegged in the Big 12 pecking order, in terms of how they were talked about in the preseason, in terms of how you saw them, in terms of how I saw them and talked about them. So Arizona was a team I had previously adjusted up. I thought was going to be more in that middle class section. I think just in terms of predicting wins and losses and where they're going to be now, they are going to be probably a bottom 4 team, and they need to be adjusted back down accordingly. Even though you might look at the roster, you might look at the way they play and say, oh, that's not the 14th best team in the conference. But I think when we get to the end of the year, they might be the 14th best team in the conference.
I mean, I still think bowl eligibility is a realistic expectation based off the schedule. But from what we've seen from them now, like, your only conference win is Oklahoma State. Well, congrats. Everybody beats Oklahoma State.
Exactly.
Like, there's not much to be excited about there. You should have beat BYU at home, but lost in double overtime, blew a lead. You blew a lead on the road at Houston.
Yep.
I mean, you're on the road at Colorado.
You only get so many of these.
You're not like significantly better than Colorado at this point, based off what we've seen from Colorado. You get Kansas at home, like, okay. Cincinnati, Baylor, Arizona State, like, I say they should reach a bowl game. But
I mean, I don't think they're beating Cincinnati, and I don't think they're beating Arizona State. So.
At this point, they remind me a lot of Cincinnati last year. Strong start that just completely fell apart, and they didn't make a bowl game despite a good, looking like they probably should.
Correct.
And then they end the season on like a 7-game losing streak. And so, like, it's not crazy to sit here and say, like, Arizona should feel like they should be able to get 2 more wins. But there's no one left on the schedule that I'm like, no, they're better than them. Like, they're better than that team. Not that they're not necessarily worse than that team, but they're going to be in a whole lot of games with other teams who are on their similar footing where I go, I mean, do I get to give the coaching edge to Colorado? I might. Do I get to give the coaching edge to Kansas? Yeah. Baylor? I don't know. I mean, okay, maybe there's win number 5, but I can't guarantee I almost feel more confident in UCF finding 2 wins left on their schedule than I do Arizona at this point.
Oh, I definitely do. Yeah.
Like, if I have to say UCF or Arizona is going to a bowl game, which one? It's UCF, not Arizona.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't think UCF is a better team than Arizona.
No.
But,
But UCF has Oklahoma State at home.
Schedules are not equal. So.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
And you don't have any Virginia. You don't have any layups left. And, you blew a couple that you should have probably gotten at least one of those. So, we don't need to belabor the point, but I think you wake up today as an Arizona fan about to go into November feeling like we've played around a little bit and we are in a worse position than we should be, and we didn't have the talent in a chaotic conference to mess around to begin with.
Before I let you go, I had a thought today. Oklahoma State is open in the Big 12. I would still lean toward Baylor probably opening, barring some just wild run through the end of the season. But as we kind of talked about with Joe, like, the vibes there aren't great. I don't think he's still going to be here at the end of the year. So I think Baylor opens. Outside of that, depending on what happens at Arizona, maybe they move off Brent Brennan. You don't see a lot of schools wanting to fire a coach after 2 seasons. But then I got to thinking, Florida's open now, along with, of course, Virginia Tech and UCLA and Penn State now. Auburn's going to open. Let's just we all know it. Wisconsin will find the money. It's probably going to open. Arkansas is open. We aren't done with the schools that are going to open this on season. And so I don't look around the Big 12 and say I see a bunch of schools that are going to fire head coaches. It did get me starting to wonder. And I know Matt Campbell's name is attached to every job opening every single season, despite the fact that he doesn't have an agent. This is a little bit of tongue-in-cheek commentary. But should some Big 12 schools be worried about these openings and potentially losing their head coach? I don't see other firings besides probably Baylor, but it doesn't mean another Big 12 school doesn't come open if, say, someone decides, actually, you know what? We would love a Willie Fritz now that we've seen him have success. Hey, Kalani Sitake, why don't you come over here? Hey, Kenny Dillingham, we know you're an alum, but that hasn't prevented other schools from poaching alums in the past. If you it's just a thought I had today after Florida opened up, not the Colorado State opening, the Florida opening.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Big 12 schools being concerned about having to open, not because of a firing, but because of a poaching?
I mean, Matt Campbell could happen at any time. Like, it's not a 0% chance, but I think we've seen enough cycles of this that it just feels like he's there and he wants to be there. So until it happens, I'm going to stop thinking about it potentially happening. Dillingham is an interesting one because how much of a break do you cut your alma mater, right? Dillingham is like 35, like he's my age. He's young. He's one of the youngest head coaches in in FBS college football. You planning on coaching at your alma mater for the next 30 years? Because I'm guessing not. So at what point do you jump? And don't get me wrong, you want to coach at your alma mater for the next 30 years. I love it. Good for you, man.
Please stay in the Big 12.
That's what I would do too. I'm that kind of person. I would say no to the money, and I would be somewhere that I want to give my life to. So knock yourself out. But most people don't do that. So I'm going to guess he's the guy that wants to get paid, because most of these guys are the guy that wants to get paid and go to the bigger school. So I think he's the interesting one. I think on the whole, I want to circle back to Oklahoma State in a second. I think on the whole, we're going to see a pretty static coaching carousel in this conference because, just to reframe what you've already said, because there are so many open jobs, if you're, I don't know, like I could see Kansas coming open because I think Wisconsin's going to go after Leipold. But
this time, yeah.
But like if you're, you mentioned Arizona, okay? So like, say you're Arizona and you're thinking about, do we want to do year 3 with Brent Brennan? We're kind of unsatisfied. Well, do you really want to be competing for coaching candidates against all these jobs that are already open, plus all the other ones that haven't come open yet, right? And all the ones that are already open, they've got a head start. They've already got their consulting firms that they're paying ridiculous amounts of money to make, like, ask ChatGPT who are the 7 people they should interview. You already know you're at a disadvantage from a branding exercise and a funding exercise in some cases, and you're coming from behind based on how much time you have. Are you sure you want to be in this hiring cycle? Because this is the problem I think West Virginia had last year. And if you're constantly out of position in the game of musical chairs, you end up rehiring the Jacksonville State coach that walked away from you 20 years ago. Like, I don't want to make everything about Morgantown, but that's an example of, we were really unsatisfied with the status quo, and that's fine. There was a good reason to be unsatisfied with the status quo, but sometimes you toss your hat in the ring and what you get back is even worse.
Yeah. No, and again, I said it all off season, like, it's going to be a big year for openings because nobody fired anybody last year. Now school, I mean, look at it. It's $113 million have been spent on buyouts so far. It's going to keep climbing and climbing and climbing. Auburn's going to open.
Yep.
Like, it's coming.
They're having the year from hell. Yep.
Yeah. Florida State's, they're going to find the money. They're going to open. Wisconsin, yeah, Fickle's open.
I don't think I agree with you on Florida State, but I totally agree with you on Auburn.
Okay. I Fickle's owed like $50 million. Like, Wisconsin might have to keep him another season unless they find the money to move off of him. Yeah, sorry, Kansas. Lance Leipold's name's gonna get pulled there. Like,
yeah.
If Penn State steals Matt Rule, what is, like, now the chain reaction becomes Nebraska opens. Like, okay, I have a hard time because I think there's going to be a lot of chain reactions in this one. Not to the, like, Nick Saban retired level, but I think there's going to be a lot of chain reactions this offseason with some of the schools that are open that are going to go take other sitting Power 4 or top of the top G4 jobs or coaches, and it's going to cause a lot of changes. And so I think there are going to end up being some other Big 12 schools that open. I don't know who, but it's so hard to look at it when you have 16 teams now in a conference and be like, yeah, all 16 coaches. Yeah, that's too many good options for schools who have twice as much money as you, who are like, hey, you come here, come coach here. So something to keep an eye on. I don't want to make coaches, I don't want to do like the fear mongering stuff. It just popped in my head, and I'm like, I'm just getting the vibes. Like, there's no way it doesn't happen this year, but we shall see. Chase, as always, it's a pleasure. Going to get you back on this week. I think I've got us an interesting guest picker for this week. And going to be our normal recording time now. And so that'll drop on Thursday. It kind of aligns with our Big 12 international conversation we had in this podcast as well. So, dude, we will talk to you then.
Talk to you Wednesday.
All right, wrap this show up the same way every week by looking to the week ahead. A fantastic Saturday of games on the docket this coming weekend for Week 9. 2 teams idle with Arizona and UCF off this weekend. No weeknight games. Everything is on Saturday. Just one morning game this week, and it's the Sunflower Showdown. Love a good rivalry game. This one should be fun. Is this the year Kansas finally ends the losing streak against Kansas State? Could be the best game TNT has had so far this season. Reminder, every week, some new fans hop on Twitter and talk about how great the coverage of their game was. And I just keep saying, welcome to the club. Welcome to the club of seeing how the Big 12 should be treated and talked about when it comes to college football. And that's what TNT delivers. They're going to get the Sunflower Showdown this weekend at 11 a.m. That is phenomenal. Folks, it's the only Big 12 game at 11 a.m. this week. So unless you're just a diehard, got to watch another team, turn on the Sunflower Showdown. Enjoy watching them talk about Kansas and Kansas State because they actually paid attention to them all weekend leading up to it. Enjoy watching them talk about the Big 12 conference like it's the best conference in college football, one that matters. Not like Game Day and Big Noon do talking about, Game Day's headed to an SEC game again. Let's talk about SEC. It's just the SEC network. Watch the TNT game. They are phenomenal. It is a busy afternoon slate. Iowa State playing host to BYU at 2:30 on Fox. Cyclones coming off of an idle week, looking for their to turn their season around. BYU, another tough game for them. Can they survive again? This is an interesting one. It's an interesting one. Tease for Thursday. 2 games at 3:00. Texas Tech welcoming Oklahoma State to Lubbock. Cincinnati welcoming Baylor to Skyline Chili City. Those I don't think will be super competitive, so I would definitely focus on the Iowa State BYU game at 2:30. How is Texas Tech? There's the infamous meme of a Texas Tech fan with his face buried in his arms and the pistols up as they're getting beat by Oklahoma State back in 2011, 66-6. This might be the reverse of that one in Lubbock this weekend. 5 p.m. West Virginia is going to try again for their first Big 12 win of the season. They're welcoming TCU to town. 7 o'clock, we get an underrated matchup of Arizona State versus Houston. A lot of projections have this one really close. I think the opening line for Circum was a pick'em in this game. I think was that Iowa State BYU. I forget which one. Point is, this could be a really good game. I am very intrigued by this one. Finally, we get Big 12 After Dark back this week. Utah welcoming Colorado to Salt Lake City. It could be fun. Colorado better than we thought. Utah probably going to bounce back pretty good. We'll see. So, great weekend of games. Thanks everybody for listening. Enjoy your week. Like I said, we'll be back on Thursday to make picks. A very fun and unique guest for this week's show, so don't miss out on that one. Y'all have a good week. We'll talk to you again then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.